Okay, welcome, my friends, to another episode of the Red Delta Project podcast, where we are taking a fundamental approach to diet and exercise to give you more power, control, and freedom over your healthy lifestyle. It's always I'm Matt Schifferly, and this week's episode is sponsored by the Red Delta Project Library. All of the books I've written over the years, including Grind Style Calisthenics, which is basically the shortest, most direct route for building muscle with calisthenics training, micro workouts for those who are time and energy efficient, as well as smart body weight training, fitness independence, and so on. I'll be referencing several of these books throughout this episode, and you can find all of those down below in the description, and the support is very much appreciated. So welcome, my friends, to the Unpopular Opinions podcast. This is an episode where when you take a fundamental approach to fitness, it's total red pill territory when it comes to diet and exercise. It's one of these things that has taken me many years to kind of come into perspective with. And once I started to hit on it a couple of years ago, it's like everything has been changing in my perspectives on how fitness actually works and how most of what we believe how it works, it's not wrong, but woefully incomplete. In other words, we're thinking that what is supposed to work really isn't working very well, and we're missing a lot of pieces to the puzzle. And that's not to say that I've got it all figured out, but today I'm going to be sharing some of these perspectives that I've adopted over the years. And it's not to kind of bitch and moan about these things, because that drives me crazy when various coaches or experts out there like, what's wrong with the world today? Basically it's just us old guys bitching into a microphone all the time. That doesn't do anybody any good. And it's just a catharsis, but it doesn't help anybody. So I promise this is not going to be a bitch session. I've already gone through my whiny little bitch phase years ago with the Fit Rebel thing. I promise when we go through these sorts of perspectives, on the other side is a perspective that could be potentially a hell of a lot more empowering and effective for you, but we've just got to get through some of the muck in order to get there. So I promise it is going to be good in several ways. And please do, for those who are coming on with the Q&A, share some of your unpopular opinions. We'd love to hear from you as well. A couple of people wandering on in. Jeff Stockdale coming on. He's saying micro workouts changed how I approach working out and got me in the best shape I've been in. Thank you very much, Jeff. That is greatly appreciated for a perspective. For your support there for my book, Micro Workouts. And that's an interesting book too, because I never actually intended for that to be about saving time and energy. That's not what micro workouts are at all. It's just when you get more clear on the fundamental objectives of what you're trying to accomplish with your workouts, you get to weed out a whole lot of fluff that's wasting your time and effort and focus on the 1% that actually is doing something. And naturally, when you focus on what's most important, you kind of stand back and realize, oh, I guess I'm done. I got it done in 15 minutes. I don't need 3 hours for my chest day and stuff like that. All right. So unpopular opinion number 1, food is more healthy and beneficial than supplements. And this is, I know, a little bit crazy because I get questions on supplements all the time. And to be clear, I have nothing at all against supplementation. If you like protein powders and vitamins and stuff, I have a vitamin pill that I've been taking lately just because, well, frankly, my mother sent me a bottle of vitamin pills. She's like, I want you to take care of yourself. I'm like, fine, okay, fine. I'll take my vitamins and stuff like that. Nothing against it at all. I just don't think it's anything special. And in most cases, not really all that beneficial. And one of the big reasons why it's not that special or beneficial is because, remember, a supplement doesn't give you anything that you're not already getting from food. It's a supplement. If it is something that you're not getting from food, that's a drug. That's something that is extra that you're adding to your body. But when we're talking about vitamins and minerals and protein and amino acids and all these sorts of things, you can get it in pills and powders and stuff, but fundamentally, that stuff isn't any different than the stuff you get from actual food. However, most of the time when we are getting it from pills and powders and all these other sorts of things, what we've done is we've essentially taken this wonderful whole food of Mother Nature and said, you know what? There's a lot of great things in this food, but let's throw most of it out and not have any of it and just focus on this one thing or this one aspect of nutrition. And that can be great if you're like, well, I need more iron in my diet, iron pills. There you go. Or if you're like, I just want more protein in my diet, protein powder, fantastic, wonderful. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But if you ask me, Matt, would you rather eat regular food versus the supplements? I'm like, oh, dude, give me the food. Not because I think that there's anything better about the nutrition itself, protein in an egg, protein, whey protein, same basic amino acids, not really any different. But you're getting more than that from the food. You're getting so much more benefit from it. So I say, why throw those other benefits away? And I'm not just talking nutritional either. Remember, from a fundamental perspective, here at Red Delta Project, the point of a healthy diet is to satisfy your appetites. The support for energy, nutritional support, absolutely. Support for hunger and satiety there, but also enjoyment and the social aspects of food as well. So you could have the most perfect nutritional vitamin pill in the world, but if it still leaves you hungry and wanting chocolate chip cookies and cravings and stuff, in my opinion, that's not a satisfying food. That is woefully inadequate. It's leaving a lot to be desired, but you're going to get a lot more with that from food. If I go out with some friends and we get a cheeseburger or something, I'm getting protein in that cheeseburger just as I am from some chalky protein shake that I'm choking down after a workout, but I'm getting so much more from the cheeseburger. And that's why my perspective is, when it comes to I need to fortify my diet, I need more in my diet, turn to food first. Using supplements is great, but there's nothing advantageous to it besides maybe a little bit of convenience. But by and large, you're going to get more from food, more benefits, more advantages to having the food, aside from even just the nutritional component. So even if the nutrition was the same, you're still getting more from the food for the other reasons as well. So that's why, again, nothing against supplements, but to me, they're like a cheap knockoff of food. They're like a second-rate, crappy, fall apart knockoff that you get out of like some sort of a bargain store where it's like, oh, it's just like the real thing. It's like, no, it's not. It's just blah. You're settling, basically, the way I look at it. Back in the day, I used to have a workout in the morning before I'd go to work, and I was like, okay, I need my protein shakes and I need this and that and stuff. And an hour later, I'd be absolutely ravenous with hunger. I'd be starving and I'd just choke it down kind of thing. It's like, whoa, okay, yeah, I got my protein and stuff. And yeah, it was okay. But I found out pretty quickly that on the way to work in Vermont, a lot of like mom and pop gas station stores, they have great delis, fantastic delis. They'd make these breakfast sandwiches, eggs and ham and sausage and stuff like that. I'd get that instead. It was way better than that protein shake. Kept me satisfied, kept me full, way better for the energy level. I'd be like building weight machines and stuff like that for hours afterwards, way better. So when it comes to supplements versus food hands down. There's not really anything special from a actual dietary standpoint from the supplement aspect of things. Let's get to some of these questions here as well. Gigaflow, hey Matt, how's it going? Any tips on how to stay injury-free while practicing calisthenics? Oh, very good one. So obviously, start off, make sure that you're getting in a decent warm-up. And the two biggest reasons I mentioned in a video a little over a week ago, the two biggest reasons why we suffer injury a lot of time is a lack of stability and a lack of tension control. So the stressors that are going through our body, particularly some of our joints and our tissues and stuff, are due to poor alignment, or we're not engaging muscle properly in order to effectively absorb the stressors of the exercise in our muscles. If the muscles aren't engaging well enough, then it's going to go right into your joints. And that's one of the reasons why in the grind style calisthenics program, we start you off with the tension phase and the stability phase, because that ensures you're going to have optimal tension control and optimal stability for the exercise. Yes, it helps you get a much more effective workout. Yes, it allows you to work the muscle far harder. Yes, it allows you to get a much more satisfying pump, and you're going to potentially create more of a stimulus for getting stronger and building muscle at the same time. And it has the added benefit of also helping you stay injury-free as well. Now, of course, there's no way to completely eliminate risk. There's always going to be risk to some degree. But when you make tension control and stability a natural or a normal part of your everyday workout practice, your risks of that misalignment and poor absorption of force on the joints plummets, and it's a heck of a lot more effective. So that's why I recommend that. Sorry, I'm just adjusting my camera here. I'm playing around with some more camera angles here, and that's not quite working for me. Let me get here a little bit more. There we go. I need to actually see things as well. I'm still fidgeting around my desktop setup here and everything. So, and that's a popular opinion, unpopular opinion number 2, which is that your warm-up should be as short and to the point as possible. And most of the time, the things we typically think of as warming up are not good for warming up at all. Like running on the treadmill for 10 minutes, stretching, foam rolling, doing all this mobility work and stuff. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of that. My unpopular opinion I've come to is that, with the exception of putting your body at the limits of its capacity for either neural capacity of how hard you're contracting your muscles, or metabolic capacity, getting your mitochondria spooled up like I would do for a bike race, your warm-up shouldn't really have to be that big a deal. In fact, in many cases, you probably don't need much of it at all. Now, when we're doing the grind style calisthenics program, that quote warm-up is the workout. We're training right from the get-go. We don't need to prepare the body to work out. We're immediately starting to train. There's no, let me warm up and then I can get to my workout. Workout starts right off the bat. And ideally, you should need as little warm-up as possible. One of the best ways to ensure that your warm-ups are effective is they require less and less attention to them over time. So think of like any other aspect of your workout, right? If you warmed up on the bench press with 95 pounds and you got strong over time, you're not warming up with 95 pounds. You're warming up with 135, 155, and so on. What you can do cold increases, right? Your base level grows up. Same thing with your cardio and everything else. What you can do without preparation should increase if you're actually getting more fit. The exact same thing goes for your warm-ups. If you constantly are starting off your workout and you're always the same amount of tension, the same amount of tightness, you always got to roll out those IT bands, I would go so far as to say your warm-up sucks, because it's not adequately making you better. It should do much more than just prepare you for the workout to come. It should be something that makes you better, so at some point, you're in the same shape cold as you used to be warming up. It's like the same idea of like, boy, this is the weight I used to work out with. Now it's what I warm up with. The same thing with your warm up, right? I used to be able to only do this much mobility or be able to do this kind of thing once I warmed up. Now I can do it cold. That's what we're looking for. A warm up should be a fairly small and minor part of your workout, and you should have to do as little of it as humanly possible. Oh, good question here. Warrior of Light. Oh, sorry, my screen is all kinds of messed up here. My apologies. I turned 32 years old. I'm too old to start training. Oh, hell no. No. So here's the other thing, an unpopular opinion number 3, right? The older you get, the more beneficial training becomes. Okay? The older you get, the more beneficial it comes. I know people are like, that's crazy. Like, I can't build muscle like I did when I was in my 20s. I can't run and do things I used to be when I was younger. It's not as good for me. Wrong. So incredibly wrong. Because the older we get, the more the healthiness of your body impacts your actual quality of life. Like when I was younger, like I'd get stronger legs. What am I going to do? Ride my mountain bike around a course 1 minute faster? Whoop-de-doo. As a bike racer, yeah, that mattered. If I added 10 pounds onto a lift or something, did that matter? Yeah, it's like bragging rights in the gym and stuff. But did that really improve my quality of life? Not really. Not really. It didn't really do anything for me. But now as I'm getting older, I'm 44 now. As you get older and stuff, it's like, it's more about, I don't have pain in my joints. I can still do the activities I love to do. I can go and, help my friend move at a moment's notice, and I'm not wrecked for days afterwards. I can go out here and hike a 14er. If my friend calls me up and says, let's ride our bikes up Lookout Mountain, which we're doing tomorrow, I can be like, absolutely, tell me what time. I don't have to be like, oh gosh, how can I do that? Am I going to be able to do that? Oh, it's going to wreck me. I'm not going to be able to walk for a week. The older you get, the more benefit you have, because the benefits are much more about your overall quality of life. And that's why I always encourage people, don't wait. Don't wait. Get training now. You're 32. 32, hell, that's still young. I look at that and I'm like, God, I remember when I was 32. I wish I was back then, knew what I knew now, of course. But, it's crazy. If you were 90, I would say the same thing. Because remember, we never lose our ability to adapt to a training stimulus. Never, ever. There's no wall. This perceived notion that we get to a certain age and then it's just downhill from there is complete myth. Yes, there's general degradation over time. Yes, of course, I'm not saying someone who's 90 years old can go and win Mr. Olympia or anything like that, but we never lose the adaptive ability to make our bodies stronger, healthier, and more fit. Never. So there's always going to be some benefit to our training, especially at 32. Oh, Mariano coming on with his unpopular opinion. I don't spend many minutes a week on my core training. Oh, good one. Okay, so here's two ways we can look at this, right? So some people will look at core training and they'll be like, I don't do core training because my core is already worked. When you hear this in the powerlifting community a lot, or at least you did back in the day, where it's like, I don't need to work my abs. My abs are working on squat, bench, and deadlift kind of thing, more in the deadlift and the squats naturally, or the overhead press sometimes. But here's a funny story. I knew a coach at one of the big gyms that I worked at, and he was a very strong power lifter, would win state championships and stuff like that. And we had an ab machine that came in. And he's like, oh, let me check this out. And he was one of those guys who's like, oh, I don't need to work my abs. My abs get worked plenty during bench, squat, and dead. And he used the lightest load on that ab machine, and his abs cramped up the first rep. He's just, oh God, because they couldn't handle the resistance on the lightest load. It was one of these body weight combination sorts of things. So the other perspective that you can have is, of course I work my abs. Some people would say, I don't work my abs because they work during bench, squat, and dead. And I'd be like, well, of course I work my abs because they work during bench, squat, and dead. So I used to say the same thing about my leg training. I don't need to work my legs. I'm a cyclist. I'm a mountain biker. Now I'm like, of course I work my legs. I'm a cyclist. I'm a mountain biker, right? So the idea of core training is like, yes, things are engaged. So here's the lesson I want you to take away from this. I know I'm kind of jumping around a little bit. When we are training our body, there are some muscles that are getting kind of worked and some muscles that are getting used. So I had someone one time was asking me about like farmer carries. Farmer carries use everything. Your earlobes get used during farmer carries. So he was asking, like, can that adequately work the chest? What about the biceps? What about the triceps? Can it work? And I was like, look, those muscles are being used during the exercise, but in order for them to get stronger, they need to be adequately worked. In order for them to be adequately worked, they need to be subjected to a higher level of the tension in the muscle, higher than what they normally have, progression, in other words. Okay. So when we look at exercises and we're like, my abs are being used during this, okay, but do you want your abs to get stronger? And if so, are they getting progressively worked in that way? If they are, great, wonderful. But a lot of times, maybe not quite so, in which case, maybe we should put something in. And the second thing is, of course, to recognize if your abs are a weak link in any of the things, like if you're sagging a little bit and you've got an anterior pelvic tilt when you're doing push-ups, something's a little bit off, maybe throw in a couple things there for your ab training as well. Let's get back to one of my other unpopular opinions here. I wrote them all down. I was brainstorming a lot last night. Here's one that's a lot of fun. You guys are going to love me for this. Can you hear the sarcasm? Exercise is not at all a reliable way to change the appearance of the human body. Let that one sink in for you, okay? Exercise is not a reliable way to help you look good naked. Now, I'm not saying it can't, and I'm not saying it won't. Obviously, it can, and obviously it does. I'm saying it's not reliable for that sort of thing. Here's why. Because there's no such thing as an aesthetic demand from training. It's something we human beings completely made up. It's complete science fiction. When we do bicep curls, we're not telling our biceps to get bigger. We're not telling to be toned or have a peak or anything like that. We're telling our biceps, hey, you've got to be able to curl this weight like I'm asking you to do it. The only thing that exists in all forms of training is a functional demand. We are essentially asking our body to functionally perform, and our body adapts to handle that functional ability. It's not trying to shape, sculpt, mold, grow, shrink, or anything about the body. It's just trying to do, not trying to change and sculpt appearance-wise. Of course, it does happen. I mean, I look different than I did when I was 150 pounds. Sure, it happens. But the ability to do so reliably is largely something that comes from a different source other than scientific fact, which I'll talk about in my next opinion. By the way, I go into this much more detail, the myth of the aesthetic demand, in my first book, Fitness Independence, which is linked down below. Let's go into a couple more of these perspectives here. I shouldn't have done, there we go. Esteban, good to see you, my friend. Hey, Matt, I would love to get into hiking in the mountains. Would love to hear your thoughts about this. Any tips? Absolutely, Esteban. Where do you live? What kind of mountains do you have? I'm lucky. I've got the Rockies in my backyard, 14,000 feet, baby. Oh, yeah, good stuff for hiking. No, definitely. I am a huge fan of hiking. I think it's fantastic. It's really good for strengthening the legs because basically you're just walking, but you're going uphill largely. You're on uneven terrain, which helps with a lot of that stability and proprioception. It's getting you out in nature, sun, wind, all that good stuff. You could do it socially. You could do it with the dog. I think it's actually one of the best forms of recreation and exercise that you can do. So anyone listening out there, if you have access to hiking trails or just even a walking path, like a rails to trail kind of deal, get out there and make use of it. It's better than any treadmill at the gym by a mile. So get out there. It's wonderful, wonderful stuff. Okay, here we go. Hercules with another unpopular opinion. Core training is a myth. Do the work and never mind. I like it. I like how, because you bring up a very good point here. So a lot of what we believe in our fitness culture is based on segmentation. Like we break the body up into pieces. Like this is the core, this is the arms and stuff like that. But it goes back again to like, is it adequately worked? So a lot of times, quote, core training is just some sort of an exercise that allows us to focus some emphasis in our midsection. So that I would say, yeah, that's core training. If you're running, for example, are you using your core? Yes. Are you working it? Not really. You know, if you're not progressively using it, you're not working it, you're just using it. And if we want things to be stronger, we need to work it. It's kind of like in the martial arts. Like when I was getting into Taekwondo, I hardly did any other exercise. Why? Because a lot of them were like, use everything in martial arts. It's a full body exercise. You do everything. Yeah, but nothing improved my martial arts better than learning to do proper push-ups, going out and hiking and getting my cardiovascular level really, really high and so on. Yeah, you can do a lot with that, but having a little bit of supplemental exercise and conditioning can go a long way. Let's see. Vincent Livadi. Hey, Matt, love the channel. Thank you very much. We ever do a review on the NOSC Cyclone Pulley Trainer? I have one and love it. I also have the 2-strap Pro Trainer you love. Very good. I just ordered another one of those yesterday, as a matter of fact. I have an idea for a fun review on that I hope to do. Yeah, I haven't done enough suspension pulley work to really have much of an opinion on it. I did do a video on my latest rope trainer, which you can hook up to a pulley as well. Same kind of idea. And I think it's most than anything else really helps with some of the instability between your right and left side. So if you're one of those people who's looking for like, oh, my right side's stronger than my left and stuff, that's going to weed out things real fast. It's also a really good way to help you kind of dial in single arm work too in calisthenics. Because a lot of people get stuck with the bilateral stuff a whole lot, rows, pull-ups, push-ups, and stuff like that. And then when they start to try and transition to unilateral stuff, it's too wonky. They don't have the stability, and they're like, I never do it. And as a result, they get stuck in that calisthenics rut, and they never progress. The pulley gives you the ability to have bilateral control because one arm is static, the other one is moving, and you're using the pulley, and that gives you a lot of ability to focus on one-arm rows, push-ups, even chest flies and stuff. Very, very satisfying type of exercise for that unilateral stuff. It's very good for your training. All right, let's get to another one of my unpopular opinions. Oh, yes. So going on with the unpopular opinion. Most of what we believe in fitness is not nearly as based on scientific fact and evidence-based as we think it is, but it's mostly based on marketing and just the hype that goes around a lot of various things. Case in point, that aesthetic demand I was talking about. When I talk about the myth of aesthetic demand, people are like, this is crazy. Like, of course it's, exercise is a reliable way to change how the body looks. It's like, well, what told you that? Like, most of what we get inundated with that our beliefs are formed around is marketing materials, not scientific evidence. And you take, like back in the day, we used to read these things called magazines before the internet came about and social media. The cover on the magazine had far more influential power on your beliefs than all of the articles in between in the pages. A single ad in there on supplement stuff, take this supplement, you build muscle and stuff like that. That was more influential to your beliefs that you need to take supplements in order to build muscle than any of the research from the entire magazine lineup for the entire year. Because our beliefs are not based on fact. They're not based on science. They're based on our emotional feelings. If I can get you to feel a certain way, I can get you to believe anything I tell you, anything at all. But if you don't believe me, that means your feelings about it are not in alignment, which goes on to my next unpopular opinion. You see these shirts all the time, feelings aren't facts. Exactly. Feelings are way more powerful and potent than facts are. Way more. You get one feeling, that's going to control your life. You can have a million facts and have no bearing whatsoever on your behaviors. Because ultimately, our behaviors are going to boil down to how you feel about the things that you're looking at. How do you feel about push-ups? That's going to control whether or not you do push-ups and how you do them. How do you feel about donuts versus salad? That's going to determine your diet. How do you feel about going to the gym versus feeling about going for a hike? Right? That's going to determine your choice between those two on a Sunday afternoon. Your emotional state is far more influential to your behaviors than your knowledge, your logic state. We all know this intuitively, because you could give someone who has a certain belief all the facts in the world against that belief, and it's not going to make a dent at all. It's like firing a BB gun at an oncoming freight train. It doesn't do anything at all. But you could have someone who knows all the information in the world, get them to feel 180 degrees away from that information, and in a moment. So this is one of the things I'm realizing by researching one of my new books, is that we humans are fundamentally emotional creatures. Our decisions, our beliefs, our actions are based far more on how we feel than what we know. And the reason why most of our beliefs about fitness are marketing based is because marketing is a hell of a lot more effective at hitting you in the heartstrings than information. This is why I'm always telling people, like, if you really want to know how fitness works, forget the best-selling diet books and everything out there. Don't waste your time with that. Read textbooks. Go to school, go to a nutrition class. That's what I did. I studied every nutrition class they had at the University of Vermont. And it's amazing. Like, if more people did that, 99.9% of all the fad diets would evaporate in an instant if people knew that information. Because it's amazing how much the fatty, trendy stuff just completely goes against the laws of nature, what you should be doing. But that doesn't happen. Why? Because there's no feeling with textbooks. It's dry reading. It's boring. It's dull. No one wants to hear facts. But you get some celebrity taking a half-naked picture on Instagram about how they like some sort of new diet. Bang! There's a ton of influence, and I get emails flooded in my email box about, what do I think about this new diet? No one cares about science. They care about their feelings, because that's what we humans are. We're emotional creatures. If we do care about the science, we care about how it's aligning with our feelings. We want it to support what we have, which is why it's so important to try to stay emotionally neutral to various methods. And that's what a fundamental approach does, right? I've got my fan-based things. There are things I love. I love calisthenics. I love mountain biking, but I'm emotionally very neutral about it because does your results ultimately depend on that? Is it any better than weightlifting or anything like? No, there's nothing special about that stuff. It's not really that important. I'm not in the shape I am in because of those sorts of things, which leads to my next unpopular opinion coming right on up. But let me get to some more of these sorts of things. Daniel Massin, unpopular opinion, protein intake is overrated. Yeah, that is an unpopular one. So let me give you a good tip of advice that, my God, this was just right on the nail. The Stronger by Science podcast, highly recommend if you do like getting into the weeds of the scientific literature out there and stuff. Stronger by Science is a good way to go about it. But this is one of the best tips I've heard from their podcast the other day was that they're like, if you're getting 2 main protein feedings a day and you upgrade to 3, that can be beneficial. So instead of thinking of like how many grams and how much protein am I eating and how many this and what my protein source is, they're basically was like, look, try to get 3 good protein servings a day. Generally, if you're at 2 and you get to 3, that's probably going to be more beneficial. And this goes with the 3P method that I talk about in my diet, plant, protein, and portion. Every time you're sitting down to a meal, it's like, I've got a good protein source here. If you get that 3 times a day, that's probably about where you need to be versus twice or once. You can do it once or twice, but it's just going to be harder. So I love that because it's like protein this and how many are you getting 3 versus 2? Well, probably 2. Well, you're probably better off with 3. Give it a shot kind of thing. And that, I think, is one of the best ways to look at that sort of protein approach. Oh, Esteban coming up. How do we change the way we feel? That's the difficult thing. You are so incredibly right there, Esteban. That's the next thing I'm trying to figure out. It's like, okay, so how we feel is the most important thing. God, how do you do that? Like anyone, who's been in a romantic relationship knows how that, wouldn't it be great? Like after she just tears your heart out and throws it and stomps it down, if you could just turn off your feelings and not feel that pain. Or in other cases where someone is, trying to get into a relationship with you and you just don't like the person, wouldn't it be more like advantageous if you could be like, God, wouldn't it be great if I just liked you kind of thing? I've been in both situations. I'm sure many of you have. But of course, we can't do that. Like I can't turn off my feelings. I can't turn on my feelings. So how does that work? And that's the thing I'm trying to figure out right now. And I'm sure it's one of those things that's just, we'll never figure it out because that's to be understanding of human nature. But it is at least asking the right question instead of saying, feelings don't matter. Doesn't matter how you feel about this sort of thing. Just do the damn thing. It doesn't matter how you feel, which is completely backwards approach. Coming on in, good comment. I think the marketing basis of fitness is due to the individualist approach to fitness. What people do in gyms is worlds apart from what you do in a sports club with a coach who knows their salt. Oh, absolutely. So true. So that's definitely one of the things to recognize is so much of fitness is stuff we think we can figure out for ourselves, and we sort of can, but not necessarily. So next unpopular opinion. The internet is doing more harm than good when it comes to helping people get in shape. And I know, irony of irony, this is a podcast. I'm doing this on my YouTube channel and everything like that. But I propose that what's most important in getting in shape is not learning from a podcast, a video, a book, or any of that sort of thing. That information is good, but by far the most important aspect of your diet and exercise and knowing what works for you is experience. Roll up your sleeves, get in there, get going with things and trusting your experience, knowing how things are going for you. Because that not only teaches you a whole lot of like, oh, wow, this is just what I like, but it's the best thing towards changing your emotional state and your feelings. This is something they've done in social studies experiments a lot of times, where they'll take someone who has a certain perspective, emotional feeling towards something, and they'll give them all the information and facts in the world, does nothing whatsoever, right? If anything, it makes them fight against changing their feelings. It makes them more entrenched in their feelings. But instead of trying to teach them how they're wrong or how they're feeling bad or is wrong about things and stuff, they'll just be like, let's just go over here and do this. Let's just go and play with this. Let's go talk to these people. Let's go do this. And no, I'm not trying to do anything. Let's just experience this sort of thing. And that can change your feelings very quickly. Case in point, every single thing that I do and love right now, I used to have the feelings of complete opposite. I hated mountain biking. I thought backcountry skiing was stupid. I thought working out in general was an idiotic thing to do. I thought that doing exercise on your own was for narcissists. Like everything I believe in and love and have a positive feeling about now is exactly the opposite. What changed it for me? I experienced it. I thought mountain biking was so ridiculous and stupid until a friend of mine said, hey, let's go rent some mountain bikes and have some fun. And at the end of the afternoon, I went from, this is stupid, mountain bikes with knobby tires, suspension, they're so freaking slow. And I came out of the woods going like, how do I afford a mountain bike? This is great. It's so much fun. I experienced it. My feelings changed because I experienced it. Right? And same thing with backcountry skiing. Who in the world walks up a mountain to ski down it? They got freaking chairlifts. That's the stupidest thing in the world. And I went backcountry skiing. I'm like, this is great. It's like hiking, but you get to ski down and I stay warm and it's powder skiing. And oh my gosh, how do I get to ski? How do I do more of this? So if anything can change your feelings, it's experience. Experience is far more potent than this knowledge that we can learn and gain information from. Dave coming on with his unpopular opinion. Complexity is overrated, but so is ultra minimalism. Overrated, excuse me. Absolutely, I agree with that. I used to fancy myself a minimalist, and nowadays I don't. If you said, oh, he takes a minimalist approach to fitness, I'd be like, no, I don't. I don't take a minimalist approach to fitness. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's a simple approach. Simplicity and minimalism are very different. Minimalism is just the same thing as overconsumption, just in the other direction. You're not trying to do what's better. You're just heading in a certain direction for whatever reason, right? Simplicity is about identifying what is important and going directly after that. If you need more, you do more. If you need less, you do less. If you need to spend a lot more money, you spend a lot more money. If you don't need to spend more money, you don't spend more money. But you do what is necessary, and you know what is necessary. But when you have consumption and greed or ultra minimalism, you don't have a target you're going for. You don't actually have an objective. You're just endlessly going towards one horizon. But there's no point to any of it. There's no objective that you're striving for. And that's something I wish I knew a long time ago. Let's see, more of these sorts of things, more of the unpopular opinions. Where did I leave off? I need to, here's one. The number one reason why most people fail, not just in fitness, but in life in general, is because they work too hard. So hard work is the number one liability to failure. I know that's kind of like if you can accomplish anything if you're working hard enough, and hard work is, its own reward and all that stuff. Hey, I used to buy that all the time. I used to basically, like, my daily routine was just, how hard can I work? Every workout I did, how hard can I work? How hard can I make my body work? How much blood, sweat, and tears can I put in? I'd brag to people, I'm working harder than you. I'm the hardest worker in the room, kind of thing. Now I look at, I'm the hardest worker in the room. I'm like, that sucks. That's not something to brag about. It's like, I didn't need 8 hours of sleep. I can get by on 5 hours of sleep. And that project took you 6 hours. Ha! I spent 10 hours on it. Ha ha! No, these are not things to be proud of. Hard work is a liability, because all it is the expenditure of resources. You're spending time and energy, effort, and sometimes money and other resources. But no one gets a trophy for hard work. You do that in school. It's called a participation trophy. But hard work doesn't work that way in real life. You're not going to get rewarded just because you work really hard. A lot of people don't care how hard you work. And in fact, some people do, and in which case they wish that you didn't. The number one reason why employees get fired or laid off is because they're working too hard. Why? Because the company found a software or a program or something that can do the same job with half the work, half the cost. Hard work is costly. And we humans, again, fundamentally emotional creatures, how we feel about things all boils down to a cost to benefit ratio. So when it comes down to fitness, The harder you work, the higher you're driving up costs. It's that simple. More work, higher costs, which means you'd better be winning big in order for it to be worth it. You'd better be really going after some good prizes. And this happened all the time when I used to work in the fitness equipment industry. People would be like, all right, I'm going to buy me a home gym and finally get motivated to work out, max out that credit card. And if I do that, I'm going to be motivated to get my money's worth. Your only hope is to basically blow the doors off your results to make it worthwhile. It's no surprise then that almost always in those cases, they'd be calling us up a year or so later going, so how do I sell some of this equipment? And do you guys take anything on consignment and stuff? Because they're coming to the plate with two strikes against them. The ones who always win are the ones who are like, I kind of want to get in shape. Let me get a medicine ball, a pull-up bar, and yeah, some of those dumbbells. You want the heavier ones? Yeah, I'll just start off nice and light kind of thing. What are you doing for your workout? Oh, I'm going to work out as hard as I possibly can. I'm just going to start off with a few basic movements I'll do at the end of the day kind of thing. When the costs are low, it's really easy to win because you don't need to make a whole lot happen in order to come out ahead, to get into the black, so to speak. And at that point, they'd come back in, and instead of saying, do you guys take equipment on consignment or how do I sell this? They're like, okay, now I'm ready for the heavier dumbbells. And I'm going to get that dip bar over there. And they keep building. Why? Because they keep winning relative to the costs, relative to the hard work. So that's why so many of the approaches here at Red Delta Project, like my micro workouts, are all about get those costs down. How little work is necessary to get the job done. Now, it's not being lazy at all. It's about being smart. It's about identifying the objective and doing the amount of work necessary to accomplish that objective. If it takes 3 hours, it's going to take 3 hours. But if you can get it done in 10 minutes, then just do it in 10 minutes. Don't put in more work than necessary because now you're driving up the cost without any extra benefit. And that's why I say that the number one reason why people fail is because they're working too hard. Let's see, another unpopular opinion coming on in here. Roaming Tortoise, I like the name. My job is physically intensive, but I still need to stretch and work out. Absolutely. Wish I knew that back in the day. I always took physical jobs back in like high school and stuff like that over the summer, just because I like to be physically active. Could stand the idea of being in a cubicle or something. And I used to have, one of the jobs was stocking Coca-Cola products at grocery stores. And I remember my employer, when I started, he's like, oh, you'll be lifting heavy stuff all day. You don't need to work out. And I thought to myself, bullshit. It's like, this is entirely why I need to work out. Again, it's like, I don't need to work out. I'm physically active all day. No, of course I work out because I'm physically active all day. I need to make sure that my back is strong. I need to make sure that I have energy so that at the end of a shift, I'm not completely drained out and I'm just going to zone out in front of the TV for the rest of the night. Absolutely. When you have physically demanding employment, you want to have some sort of physical condition. It's just like an athlete. Like, I don't need to work out. I'm physically active as an athlete. No, you need conditioning to be a better athlete. You want to have that as a physical laborer. Exactly. And it's even if you're just on your feet all day. You know, I tell nurses all the time. For some reason, I fell into a group of nurses at one point. I knew a lot of people who were in the medical field, and they're like, how much should I do like exercise? Because I'm always so tired at the end of my shift, but I'm on my feet all day. I'm like, yes, let's at least get you some lunges. Get those hips strong for sure. It's very important to make sure that we are more than adequately physically prepared for the physical demands of the job, not just barely meeting them. Joe Phil asking, hey, Matt, meat is 50% my total protein intake. Should I get B12 supplement or is it enough? Oh, God, that should definitely be enough. Holy smokes. Depends on the age, though. That is one thing. Usually when people talk to me about, you know, I'm older with diet and exercise, what kind of considerations would you give an older population? Most part, nothing. You know, I don't train people according to their age. I train them according to their capabilities. And age is an influence to that, but I'm not going to just make a blatant assumption that you should train a certain way because you're over 50. Like, that make me a bad coach, in my opinion. But that is one thing that people do need to be mindful of as they get older is, do you have enough vitamin B12 absorption and stuff? B12? B6? don't hold me to that, but it's something to be mindful of. But if you're young, you're probably more than fine. And whenever in doubt, get blood work done. Don't guess. Don't go on the internet and try and figure it out. Get blood work done and know for sure, is my B12 good? And they'll be like, yep, it's good. And you're like, thanks. And now you know for the rest of the approach. This is a good topic. Magnus coming on again. Speaking of changing one's mind, I used to hate biking in the rain. Now I bike to work every day, even during winter with snow and ice. Love it. Fantastic, Magnus. You know, as they say, there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad gear. And it is true. I mean, I used to mountain bike in the rain all the time, race in the rain. We didn't wear any different gear most of the time. Probably should have. I got caught in some really nasty ass storms back in the day, but it'd be like, okay, it's rain. And it was like, it's only uncomfortable till you get wet. And then once you're wet, it's the same thing. And then it would actually be fun. It's like, hey, this is great. I'm sliding around and power sliding around corners and stuff. It's actually kind of fun. But you're absolutely right. It's a mindset shift. So you went from, I hate doing this, to now it's fun and I enjoy doing this. You didn't learn anything. You didn't go on the internet and you're like, oh, biking in the rain can be fun. Oh, okay, let me think about that. No, you experienced it and you're like, hey, this is kind of fun. I'm enjoying this sort of thing. And that's why your feelings changed. Excuse me. Zeal. Thoughts on rotating pull-up bars? Love them. Rotation is a big thing that I'm a big fan of. I had one of my videos about a month ago kind of semi-go viral a little bit on why I always incorporate some degree of rotation with all of my upper body work. Even if it's just a few degrees of a tiny bit of rotation with push and pull, I almost always get rotation in, just because it's easier on the joints, it's better on the muscles, it's more comfortable, it's much more stable. There's a million reasons for it. So I love having rotation. Although I would second on that and be like, yes, you can have fancy rotating handles and stuff, but if you have suspension straps or rings, that rotates anyway. So there you go. That's one of the reasons why I like those sorts of setups, is that you can rotate the handles for that sort of thing. Thank you very much, everybody, coming on. This is fantastic. Okay, 2 unpopular opinions that are going to kind of piss you off at first, but I promise they're good in the long run. First one is you're going to spend relatively very little time in the best shape of your life. And 2, you're going to spend the majority of your training career in a relative plateau. Okay, so 2 things to unpack here. 1, the best shape of your life. Now, this is due to what I've come to call like Everest objectives and results. And this was inspired one time when I was listening to a fitness model. He was on a podcast and he was like, look, here's the deal. I've been a fitness model. He's saying this. I've been a fitness model for like 15 years. I've probably spent a total of about 5 weeks at single digit body fat percentage for the entire 15 years. It's like the images you see in photos and magazine covers and stuff is like, that's not what I look like most of the time at all. And this is also with athletes too. My friend who was the power lifter at the gym that I used to work at, you know, he was incredibly strong, but when he would get ready for a powerlifting meet, he was really strong. But afterwards, a few weeks later, people would be like, can you lift that weight? You know, let's see you do it. And he'd be like, no. It's like that. I could only be at that level of strength for a very narrow window of time that I peaked for the powerlifting competition. And this is due to the fact that we all have an ability to grow and progress, but we'll always have a level of ability that we can reach, but we won't be able to maintain. So a lot of times we get frustrated with this. Like, I got to this level of body fat, or I got this level of ability and stuff, but now I lost it. What went wrong? It's like nothing. It may be just due to your resources and your lifestyle and just who you are and stuff. That's a level you can achieve, but you can't stay there. Like going to the top of Mount Everest. That's why I call it an Everest goal. You can get there, but you can't stay there. So recognizing these sorts of things gives you the ability to recognize I can get there, but I'm not going to worry about staying up there, because if you try to stay up at the top of Everest, it's a really bad thing. Same thing with things like maybe potentially single digit body fat or deadlifting 800 pounds and all these other sorts of things, where if I try to maintain it, it's going to be bad news. So I'm going to selectively choose my opportunities to get to that level. So I get there when it's the most beneficial, but then I scale back under control. I don't lose it, uncontrollably. And then I recognize that I'm good where I'm at. And the second one is you're going to spend most of your time in a relative plateau. And this is just simply observing fitness around, with everything. Like everybody, for the most part, is going to look, feel, and perform roughly the same year after year for the most part during their fitness career. I get people on my YouTube all the time saying, like, you've been training for 20 years. How come you still look the way you do? I'm like, dude, you're not going to be making big strides in how your body looks, feels, and performs after 20 years of training. Next year, I'm probably going to look and feel pretty much the way I do now, hopefully without any sort of like injuries or anything like that. And this is just the way the body works. We have a ramp up and we're probably going to be roughly about the same condition most of the time. Now, that's not to say you're not changing, of course. Like right now, I'm a little bit stronger in my upper body due to the fact that I had a ski accident about a month ago, and my legs were just totally out of the picture. I couldn't get any sort of decent leg training, so I was doing a little bit more of my upper body stuff, a little bit more of my energy and attention went to that. So that's up a little bit. But my leg strength and everything, down a little bit. And that's just the ebbs and flows. Remember, a boat stays upright because it rocks with the waves. It doesn't stay perfectly level on the sea. It's back and forth. So you're maintaining homeostasis through back and forth undulations. You gain a little, you lose a little, gain a little, lose a little, time for never go, okay, gain a lot, and then we retreat back to this point. But this idea in our fitness culture that we should just be growing, building, shrinking, results. That's always aimed at the beginner. So remember what I said earlier, most of our beliefs are based on marketing, not fact and reality. Because most of the stuff in our fitness culture that's marketed is marketed for beginners, the people in the first 6 months or so of their training careers or trying something new, because that's when people have the biggest upshoot of their results is during the first 6 months to a year or so, for the most part. So that's where a lot of the stuff is marketed to beginners. But because that marketing is always around us, it feels like that's what reality is. That's how things always are, because that's what we're always subjected to. But that's not how things always are. That's how the marketing is portrayed, but not reality. Reality is that for the most part, you're going to make gains, noticeable gains for the first several months, several years of your training career. You can always get better. Absolutely. Hell, I've been doing Taekwondo since I was 10. I'm still becoming better as a martial artist, but I'm roughly about the level I'm going to be as a martial artist. And I'm probably not going to be able to get to like Olympic level or anything. Yes, I've been doing it for 34 years, but I'm not going to be super, super awesome, great as a martial artist just because it's not in the cards quite for me. Let's see what else we can do for some coming on in. Question here, Mariano LaRussa. Matt, I don't remember if you ever gave your opinion on fist push-ups. What benefits and cons does it have? So I've never understood doing push-ups on the fists, even as a martial artist, because these two knuckles, at least for me, are bigger. So every time I put my knuckles down on the floor, I'm either on these two knuckles and my wrist has been this way or this way. It never felt very comfortable. Sure, I could be on a pad or something, but it never seemed quite the most ergonomic thing for me. I always go on my hands. And I know in the martial arts, well, you have strong wrists and everything. It's like, so hit a punching bag, at least practice your punch and stuff. So knuckles on the wrist, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. But at the same time, I'm just like, there's probably better ways to go about this sort of thing. So push-ups on the hands, punch with the fist. And I don't know, just somehow I'm thinking that if you're on your fist, you're compromising your push-ups somehow a little bit. It's not the way I would usually go about it. But your hands could be different from mine too. That's the other thing. Is if your hands are built a little bit different, you're like, they feel awesome, they feel great. It's like, great, go with that. Again, go with experience. To hell with what I say. To hell with what the research says online. If you do them and you feel great and awesome with them, then go for it. Awesome, fantastic. All right, next unpopular opinion. Your results depend a hell of a lot more on you than what your diet and exercise program is. And so let me put it to you a different way. What you do for your workout and your diet and everything like that is a relatively minor, trivial component of your success compared to who you are as a person. Okay, so I always say, it's like, I don't care if you swing kettlebells, do pull-ups, powerlifting, marathon, whatever, right? That's not the stuff responsible for your success. So think about it this way, right? And this is a method-based approach to fitness, which is the opposite of fundamental approach. Fundamental approach to fitness recognizes that your success depends on the fundamental principles of mother and human nature. A method-based approach, which is mostly what is our fitness culture is based off of, is that your success depends on what diet and workout program you do, about what method you use. But here's the thing to take into perspective. For any given result, okay, whether it's building muscle or losing weight or whatever, whenever we're looking at a method, like a particular diet or workout program, the vast majority of people on the planet and all throughout history who've achieved that result have not done so with the method in question. Okay, there's a lot of people on this planet who are lean. Almost none of them are doing low carb. Very few of them are doing any sort of particular diet whatsoever. Okay, so when it comes to achieving a result, most of the time it's not due to any particular method. Second, when you look at a particular method, of all the people who are using that method, the vast majority of them are going to fail at achieving that result. So you take any type of diet, say there's 10,000 people doing this diet. The vast majority of them are not going to get the result they want. And even if they can, they're not going to keep it. So that's why we want to look at this as the method that you're using really isn't that important. Yes, of course, the little tweaks and stuff is like, you're saying I could be big and jacked doing nothing but jumping jacks. Please, let's be reasonable here. Of course, you need to work your muscles adequately. But the differences in the routines and stuff like that isn't really that important. So when we get lost in paralysis by analysis of like, okay, 5 by 5 versus 3 sets of 7, should I go with this type of lifting tempo or that type of lift? Is it okay, 2 meals a day? Where's my feeding window? And should it be in the morning or should it? Most of this stuff does not really matter at all. The vast majority of it does not, because most of your success depends more on you than the method. Your attitude, your discipline, your proficiency, your skills, your resources, your genetics, what kind of attitude you're bringing to it. You could have 1,000 people do push-ups and 1% are going to get big and jacked. But with a method-based approach, we'll say, well, it's because they did these push-ups. Really? Could we really say that it's because of push-ups that they got big and jacked? Because most of the people who did the push-ups didn't get big and jacked. So how can we say that the push-ups were responsible for that? Because if you look at it on the grand scale, the push-ups did not work. They failed. Instead, there was some stars came into alignment for various influences why those people were successful. So that's why we want to look at it from an individual perspective. And we're all different. We all have different levels of competence. We all have different levels of potential. Some of us are just going to get better results than others. Life isn't fair. It's not supposed to be fair. It's balanced. So when we look at things from that perspective, that gives you a little bit off the hook to know that the ability for you to get what you want is more about your personal development rather than perfectly dialing in your diet and workout programs. Because if you stay the same, then it doesn't really matter how you change your workout and diet programs for the most part. It's not really going to result in much different things. We hear this all the time. People are like, I've done everything. Nothing works. Yeah, because you're the same. You're the same. You still have the same attitude. You still have the same beliefs. You still have the same levels of skill and proficiency. And if that stuff doesn't change, nothing you do is going to really produce that much of a different result. All right, I'm off my little soapbox there. Let's talk a little bit more on some more unpopular things. What do you think of parkour? I think it's pretty cool. Make sure you get a coach. Definitely. The thing is, it's funny how in the movies, you see people doing these amazing physical things and they're like, wow, that's so cool. But in reality, the human body is so incredibly frail. You step off a curb, you bust an ankle, kind of thing. So there are so many things that the human body can be hurt by. And extreme stuff like parkour, we see things on YouTube videos like, that's so cool. It's like, there's probably like 5 people who have gotten hurt doing that exact same thing before they had a good take on that if they don't know what they're doing. So definitely get a good coach for that. Another question coming on. Hey, Matt, are fancy gymnastics rings exercises on rings or the high bar an Everest goal? How to tell when something is an unattainable in the long run? What level, where can you stay? Well, simple. It's just down to effort. It's just down to effort. So this is the thing. Like I said earlier, fitness is not fair. It's balanced. Some people, again, unpopular opinion, are just going to have a hell of a lot of an easier time accomplishing certain things than others. It's just going to be easier for them for whatever reason. The luck of the draw, maybe. Good genetics. Who knows? Right? So you hear stories all the time of the prodigies in a sport or a thing. It's like from day one, they're already better at it than most other people, easily. You know, Ed Cohen, one of the famous powerlifters, I keep referencing powerlifting. It's probably the Stronger by Science podcast. The first day he lifted, he squatted 315 for reps. First day, it was easy for him. Most people are going to squat their entire life and not get to that level. Yeah, that's not something, but it's just easy for him. He's just built that way, right? Abs, you know, some people, they're like, I eat donuts all day long. Look at me, abs. Other people, they're going to have to work their ass off to get a 4-pack, and it's something they're not going to be able to keep. So it's all about effort, folks. When you're going after a goal, when you're like, oh, that's a great thing to do, how attainable it is going to depend largely on how much effort it's taking you to make progress towards it to begin with. So if you are someone who's like, I'm going to kind of start getting into building muscle, and in like a month, you're like, dude, I'm looking good in the mirror. And people are like, what are you doing? You look awesome. Well, I guess building muscle is going to be easier for you. But other people, they're like, I'm busting my ass in the gym. I got a protein coming out of my ears. I got everything dialed in. And they're like, you barely have a bicep. It's like, sorry, man, you got the wrong parents. I guess just building muscle is not in your wheelhouse. Now, that's not to say you can't do it. That's not to say you can't make progress. But when we identify various objectives, we got to recognize the level of effort it takes to get to those sorts of things. Now, when I was in college, again, I was a bike racer, and I got to be the best biker I could ever be for me. And I raced well for the championship weekend, the Northeast Championship. But I knew after that weekend, I was like, there's no way I'm doing this again. Like, I cannot put in that level of effort and the time and everything. It's like, I just don't want to. The time, the commitment to it. No, like, I can't keep doing that. So I guess I'm not racing the Tour de France anytime soon, right? Because I'm nowhere near the level of those guys. And I got a lot faster, but for the amount of effort I put in, I'm not even close. So I knew, well, I guess that's not going to happen for me. I look into something else, right? And so judge it by effort. Judge it based off of how much work it takes. Again, the stuff we can maintain is the stuff we can keep with relatively little work and effort. And that's what we kind of base that sort of thing off of. All right, let's get to another couple real quick here. This hour always flies by so fast. A couple real quick ones here. One, stress is not the primary reason why your workout works. It's education. So basically, obviously a workout is going to be stressful. It's going to be hard. It's going to be physically challenging, but that's not going to guarantee you an effective workout. Your workout's effective because you're learning something, because you are educating your body to perform at a higher level. Like, oh, I'm keeping my shoulders packed a little bit more. Oh, I didn't think I could get 10, but now I got 12 reps. Don't judge it off of the effort for effectiveness. Judge it off of, I'm learning how to use my body better. It's literally physical education. Let's see. What other ones did I put down here? Weight is a very bad way to measure progress. So body weight specifically. And I'm not one of these people like, never get on the scale. The scale's lying to you kind of thing. It's like, no, it's a data point. It's one thing that you can use to kind of assess your objectives. But when you use that alone, it's really easy to manipulate weight. And a lot of people do it in the name of trying to fool you that the diet or the workout program is working, when in reality it isn't. Because it's really easy to manipulate weight. If they're like, oh, you're gaining weight, that means you're building muscle. Maybe you're just getting fatter. oh, you're losing weight. That means you're losing body fat. Or it could be water weight and stuff. Happens all the time. Weight is really easy to manipulate in the short term, but the results that we actually want are usually long-term fluctuations in weight. Here's one that fun story. Okay, so here's the thing. I have a good friend who I've been training for nearly 10 years now, and I've kind of been getting into her social circle quite a bit. And the first couple times that I would like come to dinner and all our friends would be there and stuff like that, there was this palatable tension in the room when I was there, because my friend would talk me up. Like, they knew I was coming. They're like, oh, my trainer's coming and he's great. I love working out with him and everything. So when I walked in the door, there was this noticeable uptightness that happened around everybody. Just a little bit kind of thing. And it was kind of like, all right, so what's going on here? Like, are they just nervous? Am I nervous? What's going on? And they were actually saying like, so like, okay, we're here for, it was a football party. And they were like, so what do you like, just drinking seltzer water and eating kale? Like, what do you do? What is your diet? And they're kind of like hiding their beer, and they're not going for the hot dogs and stuff too much. And it started to dawn on me, they think I'm an uptight fitness guy. They think I'm judging them on what they're eating and stuff. And so I was like, hey, grab me a beer, quick, IPA if you got it, kind of thing. And they're like, what did you bring for the potluck? I'm like, oh, I brought dessert. And they'd be like, what is it, like fruit or something? I'm like, no, I'm going to tell you people how to make a decent Chester, which is a Chester is something from Vermont. It's two big, massive chocolate chip cookies with frozen custard in between. It's like a ice cream sandwich on steroids. And so they understood that, and they started to get to know it, and that there was that level of tension kind of went down a little bit, because they're like, oh, you're not going to judge me because I'm having another glass of wine or I'm eating another slice of, I'm like, no, you're only down to 2 slices of pizza. Why not 3, kind of thing. So the tension left the room. And that's the thing that I've noticed a lot of times. People are like, okay, I want to get into fitness sometimes because we want to be socially accepted. We want to be admired. We want to be found sexy, right? Sometimes we get into fitness because we want to elevate our status socially. But the unpopular opinion I have now is, if you take your fitness too far, that actually can hurt your social standing and status around other people. Now, of course, there's always people who are like at that level. But my experience has been that when I'm around folks, especially new people who don't really know me, that if they think of me as the uptight fitness guy, they keep a little bit more distance. But once they know that I'm not the straight and narrow, that I'll skip workouts to go drinking with friends, that I'll have junk food, that I don't look at other people like, look at that person, they got a beer gut, ha kind of thing. So as long as they know I'm not like that at all, suddenly people are like, hey, why don't you come over and stuff, and girls are flirting with me and all these other sorts of things, because the barriers get reduced. So a lot of times being perfectly fit can be kind of like social kryptonite in many ways, not an accessory to this. And I've seen countless examples of this where, guys would go out on a date with girl, but like, I can't eat the potato and I got to be in bed by 8:30 and, kind of thing. And sorry, I'm late. I was at the gym and stuff. And it's kind of off-putting sort of thing. So in many ways, being too strict in one's diet and exercise can actually be a little bit more of a crippling social aspect than an embracing one as well. All right, folks. So let's see. Get just 1 or 2 more here to sign on off. Calisthenics 716. Really enjoying the show. Their unpopular opinion. Sorry, I shouldn't assume. Stretching is wasted time, increases risk of injury. Your thoughts? Yeah, I've found the same thing to be the case. The best stretching is strength exercises that require a big range of motion. The best strength exercises, stretching exercises that require a lot of strength, kind of thing. Remember, it's about you gain that which you challenge. This perception in our mind of this is a stretching exercise or this is about strength is more of our imagination. So deep squats, one of the best mobility exercises there is. Getting a full hang with a pull-up, letting those arms stretch out, not losing the tension though. Great for mobility sort of thing. And yeah, I'll second that. I haven't done any quote stretching in a very, very long time. You would think a taekwondoist would say otherwise though. Oh, a good insight here. Hey, Matt, really, oops, sorry. Here we go. Oh, come on, change it. Thank you. At the point you described, fitness was separating them from other people. It wasn't really them. This is absolutely toxic to all relationships. Yeah. So remember, it is about relationships. So it's about alignment with other people. And most people are not fitness people. Most people, they like to stay in shape. I mean, hell, my friend, was big into fitness. That's why she hired me. But at the same time, she likes to have a glass of wine, and she likes to have pizza, and she likes to sit on the couch and watch football Sunday afternoons. So it's about being in alignment with other people and recognizing most people value fitness, but they're not, quote, fitness people. They're not fitness junkies. Can be a very important thing to understand. And and it's not to say, don't be like a certain way to fit in with people, be yourself. But I think a lot of us, I came to this realization myself years ago. I'm not a fitness guy. Seriously, I'm not the kind of guy who's going to try to be like all up in the gym and have a perfect diet and everything like that. I tried to be. It's not me. For me, honestly, diet and exercise is supposed to support my quality of life, not be the focal point of my life. It's not my lifestyle. I spend most of my day not doing diet and exercise stuff. Actually, I spend most of my day working, but that's the thing is I'm not trying to be that guy. I think most people don't want to be. So we shouldn't have to try to be that guy if we're honestly not. I've known coaches and trainers who are very successful and they're smokers, and they don't hide it. They're like, yeah, I enjoy a cigarette and a beer on a Friday night kind of thing. They're real. They're authentic with themselves. And I think we recognize authenticity more than any sort of a veneer or a mask that we put on to the world. Because when people understand that you're real with them, they become more real with you. So, all right, let's close this down, or as they say, let's land this plane. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching and or listening. Again, the audio for these is always on the Red Delta Project podcast, your podcast directory. And if you have any questions, reddeltaproject@gmail.com. Appreciate everybody coming on, sharing your opinions and your thoughts and your questions. Thank you very much. We'll do this again next Saturday as well. Don't forget the sponsors for today's show is the books that I've written down below: Micro Workouts, Grind Style Calisthenics, Bodyweight Training for Martial Arts, all of them down below in the description. Thank you very much for the support. So I will talk to you guys next time. So then be fit and live free.